Inquiring minds want to know.
I want to know.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Inquiring Minds with MovingBucksmont.com. I'm your moderator, Jeff Slick, with the Mark McGuire team. And with us today are ultra awesome agent extraordinaire, John Trigg. And on the big screen behind us, our team lead, Phil Voorhees. Say hi, Phil.
Guys, how you doing?
All right. John, welcome aboard here, man.
Good morning.
Episode 2.
Yeah.
All right. So, you know, the format is we're taking questions from the public. So we're going to get our first question. Pull it up here. This comes from Tracy in Souderton. And I'm going to lead in with John. Start with John on this one.
Right.
So, John, how many houses do you think we will need to see before I find the one I like? Ooh, that's a good question.
Okay. So, yeah, this is a little bit loaded. How many houses do you need to see? You need to see, technically, the simple answer is as many as it possibly takes. The more complex, realistic answer is seeing houses isn't about just finding the right house. It's not about necessarily all going down the positive track. You also have to go down the negative. You have to see places maybe you don't like, or that communities or neighborhoods that you think are kind of on the fringe for you. So maybe there's things that you like in an area, access to parks or access to recreation, stores, shopping, schools, libraries, whatever it is. But you should go out and see things across the board. With a lot of my clients, what I usually tell them is the first 5 to 7 houses, I don't expect you to like any of them. If you like some of them, awesome, right? But I expect nothing other than, I really don't like that, I really don't like that, because it helps us to narrow down our searches, right? So it makes it easier. One of the things that we have such a hard time with is when we pick out a bunch of beautiful houses, nice houses, finished houses, remodeled, renovated, whatever, we go in and it's like, oh, I love this, I love this, I love this, but it's too much money. Money becomes a factor.
Yeah.
I don't want people thinking about money necessarily. That's the last thing. I want them thinking about life. What's the future? What's my growth? What's the next 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years going to look like? Am I going to be here for a long time? Can I be here a long time? Is this a house to grow into, or am I reducing? Depending on the client, not everybody's looking for a growth house. Somebody who's maybe getting towards the end of their career, maybe they're looking for something they can settle back into. So it's important that we look at everything. So how many houses? For me, I put it this way. I've had people where I've taken over 100 houses before finding the one that they chose. This is a true story, by the way.
Oh, wow.
I had this couple I worked with, and we saw everything. But they said to me, the first week we met, we're not buying a townhouse. We want single family only. We want a yard for our grandkids. They're older.
Yeah.
We want a yard for the grandkids. Single family. Phil, you remember these people too. We met. They were at the party at the Lansdale Day. So, not buying a townhouse.
Okay.
Single family only. So we saw house after house after house after house. And finally, after a few months, I said to them, let's just go and let's just check out a couple twins townhouses just to see what you think. Literally, it was about 112 houses we went to see. The last one we saw was a townhouse. No kidding. We walked in, and they said, we want this one. This is the house we want. So what you think you want versus what you actually want, they're not always the same thing. The balance is you have to see enough that gives you a good feel, and then you'll know from that gut feeling when you go in. But it's a great question. It actually is a good segue, Phil. So for you, when you're working with people, the question that I get a lot is, do I have to be pre-approved before I call you or before I work with you? So what's your take on that? Should somebody get their pre-approval, get the lender, do all their back-end work, talk to the bank, or should they just reach out and call?
No, that's a great question. It's actually very, very relevant because I actually had something happen last night with something like this. So the answer is no. I actually prefer that you don't go and do all that back-end stuff prior to meeting me, because we have certain lenders that we work with that we know the process. They'll be able to teach you the process and actually hold your hand through it. Also, in the local market, that lender could pull a lot of weight, so that could help you get that accepted. So in this case that I'm talking about, I had clients out west actually sent me a pre-approval from an online bank. Went with that. They came over. They just fell in love with the property. Had them speak to one of my lenders. Go to find out, it's not going to work. And we actually have to get a little bit more creative on their loan to make that work. But if they just went off of the online lender, we would have went under contract, and we would have actually had to terminate that contract probably about halfway through because they couldn't meet those needs. So we're going to get a little bit creative, and that's where having the lender that we use and work with is actually helping us with that. So we all jumped on the phone last night, put a big game plan together of how we're going to make this happen, and we're going to get a signed contract either today or tomorrow on that property. So the answer to that is absolutely not. Come talk to us prior to, and we'll send you in the right directions and connect you with the right people. So Jeff, what do you think about that?
And yeah, and to play off of that, like one of the things that we're talking about is like, first of all, I like to work with local lenders. Local lenders show up. First of all,
Mhm.
you go talk to the big banks, you become a number. I've had times where I had to literally fax paperwork to a bank to get permission to talk to the lender, and then they go, "Oh, we're not available on weekends." Well, when are we showing houses 9 times out of 10 on the weekends? And I need
Yeah.
to write a deal fast. And if I can't get you, that I'm kind of SOL at the end of the day, and I'm being blunt about that. But at the end of the day, we want somebody who's going to be able to take our call, get us a pre-approval if the number may shift a little bit. We may be able to get you a little bit more house, and I may need a little bit like $5,000 more on that pre-approval to show that. Plus, I like to get a loan estimate to go along with my offer, so our numbers are jiving. We're working as a team, so when I do my buyer's estimate of closing costs, I have that sheet. The lender and I are in lockstep 100% of the time.
Absolutely.
And John, like to circle back to your question a little bit, when we're walking through a house with a buyer, our job is to educate you along the way. Yeah. So you're going to be learning. Like I literally did this with my daughter and my son-in-law. They found out about manifold systems. They found out about how all these things work in different houses. And I've had buyers who say, I want this. Like just like you said, I had a client that wanted a bed and breakfast. They wanted to have they were looking at multifamily properties. Guess what they ended up with? A 3-story townhouse on the Delaware River with an elevator in it. Thank you. Nice. It was awesome.
Very nice.
But it's nothing like a bed and breakfast.
No.
So where you think you want to be, and where you ultimately end up, can be completely different stories. And your financing is a big piece of that. If you're a cash buyer, that's awesome. But if you need a lender, we want to work with a lender that we've partnered with, that we work with closely, and understands how to handle you with grace and kindness, just the way we do. Along the way, and educates you through that process so that when we get to settlement, and it's super smooth. We're signing the paperwork. It's easy. If you have a question, they can answer it on the spot. Oh my gosh, there's nothing better than having that lender there with you to shake your hand and become part of the family with you. So.
I think a lot of people underestimate the value of having your lender on site. So there's a statistic that came out a couple days ago in the Wall Street Journal. So last year, Rocket Mortgage, one of the largest online companies, accounted for just over $1 of every $10 loaned in houses last year. A little over 10%. This is a company that in 2008 did $12 billion in sales, and in 2020 did $351 billion. But they have bankers' hours. They walk out the door at 5 or 6 o'clock at night. I don't leave my house to show houses until 6 o'clock at night. Many nights. Sometimes I'm lucky and somebody has a lunch break. But that's not the norm, right? That's the oddity. Just like Jeff said, nights and weekends are real estate based. That's what we do. So if your loan officer, your lender, isn't available at 7:30, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, or in some cases, I know Phil and I have done deals at 1 o'clock in the morning. We're still talking. We're still on the phone with the other agent. All right, we'll come up 5. How about if you come down 2? That negotiation, there needs to be somebody there for it. And the most important thing of what Jeff just said, they're at closing with you.
Absolutely.
So many deals, especially now as we're seeing this craziness with financing, so many deals at the end zone, when it should be simple and smooth, get messed up. I've had 2 of my last 4, literally half of the last 4, only 4 deals, but still, 2 of those 4 at closing almost fell apart. And if it hadn't been for the local lender that was able to immediately jump on the situation, solve the problem, those people wouldn't have closed on their houses. So it's vital to have that. Absolutely. Totally agree with you guys.
We're negotiating deals at all points.
One more thing in real quick.
Go ahead, Phil. Go ahead. I interrupted you.
With that last point, because we do work with a lot of out-of-state buyers. They're not necessarily here for the closings. They're not necessarily here for all of that. So having that extra person that, again, is there for you and that will be able to game plan and create stuff on the fly when it needs to be. Because, again, they're not here. They're doing everything remote. That adds another level of stress. So
Yeah.
for myself, that communication I'm having at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, that's 7 to 8 o'clock over there for them. That's not late. So I'm on the phone at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning with them because that's normal time. That's 10 o'clock at night for them.
Yeah.
So having that lender that will also jump on the phone at 1 o'clock in the morning is crucial. And again, that happens because again, we deal with out-of-state people. So
Often.
Out-of-state lenders just don't understand what's going on in our market. If they're based in Ohio, Iowa, California, they're looking at the market much differently than we are in Pennsylvania here. So it's having that understanding of the local market, and the lender understands the urgency of that, because if it's in a slower market, they may not think it's urgent, but we're here like, we need this today. This has to be in. We have a deadline of X o'clock that the listing agent wants to present offers. So we have to have that in on time. Everything's on a time-driven basis with this business.
Yeah.
Always is. And we've done deals. Phil, you and I talked, we were negotiating a deal. I was on a ski lift one day. So it happens. Like, we're working all the time for you. And guess what? The lenders are too. And that's the really big part of it, is our job is to close, get you through safely, smoothly through the transaction, and our lenders are our partners with us. So that's a big deal, and we want to educate you along the way. Any parting words, guys?
No, I'm looking forward to next week. I know after the first video came out, we've had a few more questions come in. So, and I actually saw one. I'm not going to say it today. You guys are going to have to wait till next week. Okay. But there was a great, could be funny, but also could be just mind blowing. But a great question came in. So I'm really looking forward to next week. So you got to make sure you check out next week's video, because it's going to be the question was brilliant, and it's something that we don't typically answer.
All right.
Because usually what we're doing is we're educating with these videos. We're talking about things that people have curiosities about. But this particular question had nothing to do with their process of buying, selling, or investing, and it was based about us. And I'm going to leave it there. So you got to check back.
Teaser alert. All right. Phil?
One last thing. If you get enough people that like this or comment, John Trigg is going to dress up on the next video.
Ooh. All right. I like it. Let's go.
This was done on the fly.
Boom. Mic drop. Let's throw it down. Well, thanks, Phil. Thanks, John, for your time today.
Absolutely.
It's been a great day today at movingbucksmont.com. And remember, when you have questions, you got to ask Inquiring Minds, the team here at movingbucksmont.com. We'll see you next week. Stay tuned for the next episode. Bye-bye.
See you.
Bye.
For people with inquiring minds.
Like me.